Hi, everyone. Welcome to the San Ramon Valley Unified School District Board of Education Board meeting. We want to let the public know that we are video recording today's meeting. The recording is being live streamed on the district's YouTube channel, and a link to the recording has been posted to the district's website. I'd like to introduce the board members, Vice President Ken Mintz.
Good evening.
Clerk Rachel Hurd.
Hello.
Board members Laura Bratt
Good evening.
and Shelley Clark.
Good evening, everybody.
Okay, and I'm your president, Susanna Ordway. Thank you, everyone, for joining, either in person or virtually, for our last board meeting of the 2020-2021 school year. It's been a tough, stressful year that challenged us all to navigate through uncharted territory. Though there is still more to be done going forward with the efforts of everyone connected to SRVUSD, I believe we have emerged with resiliency and renewed energy that will help us become even better for the next school year. And just want to let everyone know that this is the last board meeting held at here at the San Ramon Valley High School. We will be returning to our district office for future board meetings. So do not come back here for the next board meeting. Okay, with that, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, 6.0, report of action taken in closed session. During this evening's closed session, the board made the following appointments effective July 1, 2021. Kathleen Martin as principal of Montevideo Elementary, and Anusha Aga, program supervisor for special education. May I have the motion now for 7.0 to accept the minutes for June 1st, 2021.
So moved.
I'll second.
The motion was made by Board Member the motion was made by Board Member Hurd and seconded by Board Member Bratt. Call out vote. Board Member Clark? Aye. Board Member Bratt?
Aye.
Board Member Hurd?
Aye.
Board Member Mintz?
Aye.
Board Member Ordway?
Aye.
The motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. May I have the motion to accept the open session agenda?
So moved.
Second.
The motion was made by Board Member Clark and seconded by Board Member Mintz. Call out vote. Board Member Clark? Aye. Board Member Bratt?
Aye.
Board Member Hurd?
Aye.
Board Member Mintz?
Aye.
Board Member Ordway?
Aye.
The motion passes 5-0.
Great. Okay. So 8.2, approval of consent agenda. So consent items are considered routine in nature and are approved by combining them into a single vote. A member of the board or a member of the public may request that a consent item be removed from the consent agenda to be considered and voted on separately. For the sake of the public, I want to acknowledge that, as is typical for this time of the year, the consent agenda is longer than usual. So consent items are considered routine in nature. Backup documentation is provided to board members in advance of the meeting to ensure that we are completely prepared for the information we need to vote on these items. Tonight, I think there's, our one on certificated personnel changes. We do have a amended version. And then also, I believe, we're pulling 11.18 from consent, and it will be 10.8. And that's pulled by Helen of Doty Valley. Any other items to be pulled by board members or the public? No? Okay. Can I have a motion, please?
Move approval as revised, please.
I'll second.
Oh, sorry, you can have it.
The motion was made by Board Member Mintz and seconded by Board Member Bratt. Call out vote. Board Member Clark? Aye. Board Member Bratt?
Aye.
Board Member Hurd?
Aye.
Board Member Mintz?
Aye.
Board Member Ordway?
Aye.
The motion passes 5-0.
Right. Okay, 9.0 reports to the board, and 9.1, really excited for this one. It's the recognition of Dan Liu as California Classified Employee of the Year. Assistant Superintendent Keith Rosenstiger.
Thank you, President Ordway. Good evening, members of the board, colleagues, and members of the public. My name is Keith Rojenski, and I'm the district's Assistant Superintendent for Human Resources. And one of the many privileges that I have in the work that I do for the district involves recognizing and celebrating outstanding employees. And I'm very honored tonight to be standing here before you to do just that. But I'm not going to stand here alone. I'm going to ask Mr. Dan Liu, lead custodian at John Baldwin Elementary School, to please join me up here on the stage. Good evening. Nice to see you, Dan. There we go. All right. So as you know, earlier this year, the district selected and honored 42 of its classified employees as 2021 Classified Employees of the Year. During that reception, which we held virtually this year to honor them, we proudly announced that Mr. Liu, lead custodian at John Baldwin for the past 15 years, had been selected as our district Classified Employee of the Year. Now, each year, once we select our Classified Employee of the Year, we send all of the nominating materials to the Contra Costa County Office of Education for consideration as Contra Costa County Office of Education Employee of the Year. And most districts throughout Contra Costa County do that. In early May, we were very pleased and excited to learn that Dan had been selected by the Contra Costa County Office of Education as this year's Custodial and Maintenance Employee of the Year. But let's give him first a round of applause for that, because we haven't done that publicly. So going further in the process, once the County Office of Education selects its County Employees of the Year, those nominating materials are forwarded to the office of our State Superintendent of Public Instruction, Tony Thurmond, for consideration as a California Classified Employee of the Year. And in late May, I believe it was late afternoon on the 27th or the 28th of May, we were thrilled to receive communication from Superintendent Thurmond's office that our own Dan Liu had been selected as one of 9 individuals to be honored as California State Classified Employee of the Year for 2021. So in his press release, Superintendent Thurmond said, the pandemic has made this an incredibly difficult year for students and families, and that meeting students' basic needs as well as their social and emotional needs has been more important this year than ever. He went on to say that our outstanding classified employees have made heroic efforts this year to set up and support California students so that they continue to learn under these challenging conditions. These dedicated employees have made sure that our kids have healthy meals, safe transportation to and from school, and someone to talk to during these difficult and unexpected times and changes, all helping keep them safe and supported in their lives and in their educations. Dan was selected at the state level from among 123 county classified employees of the year throughout the state of California, who evaluated his work performance, his school and community involvement, his leadership and commitment to his work, his support from colleagues, and his ability to enhance the impact of classified employees in our school community. All right, Dan, I'm going to look at you as I talk to you here. So, Mr. Liu, you exemplify the very best of employees in the classified service here in San Ramon Valley, in Contra Costa County, and in the state of California. Your deep commitment to your work, the care that you show for students, staff, and families in the John Baldwin School community, and the personal pride that you demonstrate each and every day set a high standard that all classified employees in this district and in every district in California can aspire to. You do yourself, you do San Ramon Valley Unified School District, the John Baldwin community, the Service Employees International Union, the union that represents you and who is here tonight to help celebrate you, and the classified employees in this district and everywhere very proud. We congratulate you on being selected for this very well-deserved honor. We can think of nobody who is more deserving than you, and we thank you from the bottom of our hearts for everything that you have done and that you continue to do to support students here in San Ramon Valley Unified School District. Congratulations to you. So all of that noise back there is his John Baldwin entourage. So we do have a couple of gifts for you. We've got this beautiful orchid, and when Adrian, who's my assistant, went on out and shop for it, she says, "Oh, it's Father's." So the colors are just absolutely beautiful right now. So anyway, we've got this orchid for you. Also have a card, and so I live fairly close to Dan. He actually lives over in Solano County in American Canyon, and there's this neighborhood Thai restaurant that I think he and his family like. That's called Thai Kitchen, correct? And so we have a little gift certificate in here for you to go and have dinner at your local Thai restaurant, your neighborhood Thai restaurant with your family. And we hope that you enjoy it immensely. Okay? You're very welcome. So unlike me, who relishes the opportunity to hold a microphone and to speak into a microphone, Dan is much more humble and typically doesn't have the same response to the microphone. But I'm going to ask Dan if he'd like to step on up and just say a few words and maybe tell us who he's got here from his family tonight to celebrate with him. You okay with that? Okay, come on over.
First, thank you all of you for considering me the Employee of the Year. I'm very proud to work at San Ramon School Unified District, and I'm pleasure to express to my feelings to all the staff and parents, children, and John Baldwin community who I pleasure to work with slowly 15 years. And this is my special day for me and my family. Once again, thank you. Thank you all of you for support. Thank you.
So I know our superintendent, Dr. Malloy, has some comments that he would like to make, and then when our board president, Susanna Ordway, has a few. Dr. Malloy.
Well, thank you so much. And again, Keith, you said it best, but I'm going to share one story that I like to put things on social media. So when we were honoring you at John Baldwin that wonderful day when we came for lunch, I started getting all kinds of emails from people who were at John Baldwin many years ago telling me about you. You make a lasting impact on your community. And I think that says it all. When we make that kind of impact, that people reach out and say, I knew Mr. Dan, he helped me this way. Or I knew Mr. Dan and he was always helping us that way. And I got that feedback from simply putting out a tweet. Congratulations, you deserve this.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. Thank you.
And Mr. Dan, because that's what I'm going to address you. I am so pleased to extend our most sincere congratulations on behalf of the rest of the board members here. We also really want to thank you, not only because of your dedication and hard work that you've put into, all the efforts that you've done and be recognized in your school site level, the district level, county level, and of course the state level. Not only that, all of that, right, it's really deserved to be congratulated. but it's also because of your incredible efforts and your care that you've done the many years at the school site at John Baldwin. That shows that you really care for your school, your colleagues, and most importantly, your students. And we are eternally grateful for that. So congratulations, Mr. Dan.
Yeah, thank you.
So with this, I'm going to thank you or congratulate you once again, Dan, on your selection as a California State Classified Employee of the Year. I'm going to thank everyone from the John Baldwin community who came here in support of you today, and members of the SEIU leadership team and CSEA leadership team who are here to support you, as well as members of the public. And I want to thank all of you who tuned in from home who couldn't be here tonight to celebrate Dan. We're very thrilled and happy for him, and very proud of him. Thank you again, everyone.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just going to go ahead because I don't want to stall up everyone's time. I just want to say that I have two kids, even though I live in the Doherty Valley area. I have two kids who were diverted to John Baldwin, and I actually do remember you. I'm one of those parents in the community. I remember Baldwin was always clean, and most importantly, you made an improvement because your name, I actually know your face connected to your name, but your name was often mentioned by the children. So I just want you to know that you must have been a very down-to-earth, staff. And I want to thank you for your kindness to the kids and for keeping the school healthy and safe. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dan.
Oh, that was great. Okay, moving on to 9.2, public comment for non-agenda items. Public comment will be limited to no longer than 3 minutes, and the board cannot discuss any items not on the agenda for this evening. The views expressed during public comment are those of the individual speaker and do not necessarily reflect the views of the district staff. The district believes in an inclusive, welcoming, safe environment for its meetings for all of our community. The board respects each individual's rights to express ideas and opinions. Pursuant to applicable law, the board policy, the board will not prohibit public criticism of the board, or we kindly ask that when making public comments, you refrain from the use of profanity, exercise tolerance of others and their viewpoints, and exemplify model behavior. Please be mindful that district students may be watching. You are encouraged to address the board and the public in a respectful manner such that all those observing, from children to adults, are made to feel welcome, safe, and respected. The board will not permit any disturbance or willful interruption of board meetings. Persistent or excessive disruption by any individual or group shall be grounds to terminate the privilege of addressing the board. Okay, so for public comment, we do have Helen of Doherty Valley, please, for public 9.2.
Superintendent, board trustees, I'm here to address you on 3 issues. So I'm going to go down the list. The first issue I want to address is the mask mandate. As you probably already are aware that the governor is lifting the mask mandates, and I don't know how that affects our school, but I do not agree with his action right now. Not that I want to wear my masks all the time, but because California is the gateway state to the interior United States, and we have currently a lot of population that come from areas in the world that are experiencing very grave increase of a lot more serious variant. And I'm sure you're probably all aware of that particular variant. So I would like you to please, at some time, let the community know what is your plan when school opens. Personally, I really would like to see the mask is still on until January of 2022. And I am a Republican. So this is not because I'm a Democrat and I want to keep the mask on. The second issue I want to address is that in your registration for everyone for next year, would you kindly put in a question regarding their overseas travel history? And if anyone, for example, arrives less than 14 days before school starts, I ask you to demand that they stay home for another 7 days before they start school. The reason being is we should learn from our past mistake. Back in January and February of last year, we tried to be non-racist at the terrible, terrible cost of everyone's health, economy, and mental health. It is wrong. This is not about racism. This is about protecting everyone. I ask you to please consider putting travel history as a question in your registration questionnaire. Lastly, for digital security, as we become more and more digitalized, I worry digital safety and security for our children that might impact them a lifelong time. I ask you to please review your policies and rules on accessible authorities on student personal profiles. And I also would like you to please have immediate no action staff leaves, as well as when graduates, are gone from high school, their personal profile should be accessible by just one for more than a year or 2 years or indefinite. I would like you
Please
to
wrap
please
up your
have digital
comments.
accountability to the community members as our students'
Thank you,
personal
Helen.
file
That's 3 minutes.
is very, thank you.
Okay, and moving on to 9.3, Association President's Report. So Tammy.
Tammy Castelluccio, President of CSEA. On behalf of CSEA, I wanted to congratulate Dan Liu for being the California State Classified Employee, as well as just wanted to wish everyone a great summer. It's been a rough year, and I appreciate the board and everything that you guys have gone through, as well as the district management and all of our administrators for working collaboratively with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Tammy.
Hi, I'm Carrie Lucchini, the SEIU president, and I also wanted to congratulate Dan Liu. And also, I wanted to thank the board, the administrators, the management for everything we all went through this year together. And I hope everybody has a nice summer.
Thank you, Carrie.
Good evening. I'm Melinda Daly, Servia Vice President, and I'm presenting tonight for Servia President Laura Finco, who was unable to make it due to a family obligation. Laura asked me to share the following. Too often when we think of labor and management relations, our minds turn to things like lines in the sand, lack of trust, or conflict. One has to wonder how we got to that place. What I would like to do is focus on how we can get away from that place. Ask ourselves what we can do to ensure that our focus never strays from why we are all here, our students. Making sure that our kids receive the highest quality education by recruiting and retaining the best educators and guaranteeing our students receive the support and services they deserve, especially coming out of a global pandemic. Former board member Greg Marvel once said that if you want the best, you must be willing to do what needs to be done to get the best. It may come as a surprise, but I do not disagree. Tonight, we will be hearing a presentation on the budget with multi-year projections indicating our district is moving into deficit spending. Some may notice a projected reduction in certificated salaries. This is of concern, especially given the number of administrative positions we have recently created and hired. It leaves one to wonder what positions are projected to be cut in the next couple of years. Thankfully, multi-year projections, while legally required, are hardly ever correct. In fact, with the governor's revised budget, We will be experiencing one of the largest fluxes of ongoing funds coming into public education, which will be part of the LCFF and not supplemental or one-time funds. Ideally, we will work in partnership to make sure our students benefit from these funds, including a commitment that the improvements supported by the Bridge Promise, which Prop 15 would have secured, continue. In fact, as presented at the last board meeting, our community agrees that smaller class sizes, better counselor ratios, and support services like social workers and nurses are a priority. Let's make this a reality. Included in the Bridge Promise was also the agreement to form a budget advisory committee. This has yet to be done. I believe that if we honor this agreement, we will be able to avoid deficit spending by thoughtfully reviewing and implementing budget priorities. Honoring what is collectively agreed upon is one way to move forward. It's what's ethical and builds trust. Our students deserve no less from us. I look forward to moving into a true partnership. So when we hear about labor and management relations, we think of only the positives, where bridges are built instead of walls. If we are true to our students, this is something we can achieve together. I appreciate your time. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I hope everyone has a wonderful summer, and also congratulations to Mr. Liu on his achievement. Thank you.
Thank you, Melinda. Okay, moving into 10.0 actions. 10.1, approval of SRVUSD strategic plan. Dr. Malloy?
Thank you, President Ordway. I'd like to take this time this evening just to offer some insights that have emerged from our invitation for members of our community to comment on what they heard from us last board meeting. So if we can go to the next slide, please. This is a graphic that we have been working with that speaks to what it is that our strategic directions are communicating. One of the things I'm going to state right from the beginning is that when we ask for your approval this evening, we have changed the wording from what you would have received in the package related to our commitment statement, and that is up above in the right-hand corner. So when you are approving, you'll see it in front of you on your desks. It is being posted to the website. SRVUSD, dedicated to academic excellence, where all students thrive and succeed in innovative and inclusive learning environments. The reason it reads that way is because in the format you received, we went back to the word success, and we want to keep that word because it connects to the next piece, which is very important to this plan, which is absolutely everything we do is on the foundation of academic excellence. And we are stating that as emphatically as we can because that was one piece of feedback we received. Does that mean stepping away from our district commitment to academic excellence? And we're not. The however is we want to broaden the definition of success on that important foundation. And you can see down that right-hand column those important pieces around social emotional well-being, curiosity, confidence, independence as learners, the importance of teams and collaboration, empathy, compassion, determining students' purpose and their understanding and the importance of service, setting and achieving goals that our students create with our support, and of course, last but absolutely not least, graduate students who love learning on the foundation of academic excellence. So I wanted to draw your attention back to the word thrive because it speaks more than success or succeeding can, because thriving is about flourishing. And when we look and think about the terms thriving and flourishing, it gets at some of those values that we speak about when we say we want our kids to love learning. And then all the other pieces of this strategic plan you have seen. The areas, equity, social emotional well-being, deep learning and innovation, in a context that honors shared leadership, stewardship of resources, and responsiveness. Next slide, please. So our participants this last 2 weeks has been smaller than the previous 4 months where we had thousands of people, but we did want to honor the voices of those who came forward. Participants were 131, thoughts shared 52, and there were 1,657 ratings in our thought exchange program. Next slide, please. The key comments we continue to hear is the desire for smaller class sizes. That equity must include students with special education needs, which it does, and I want to be absolutely clear about that. We're starting to hear that when we use the term equity, we have to be absolutely explicit because some members of our community, when they hear that word, think solely about issues related to race, which is part of the discussion, but not the sum total of that discussion. And that becomes a communication and a learning opportunity as we do this work. Needing greater detail about deep learning. It was interesting that some of the comments that when we're speaking about the critical thinking, the application, taking the learning beyond the important standards of knowledge, that some were worried that that might be less rigorous. We will do a better job of communicating that when we engage in the deep learning and innovation that is part of this plan, it is actually much more rigorous on so many different levels. And that is why it is so important that we continue to communicate. And of course, a desire for more specificity on the social emotional programs that will be embedded in our work. Next slide, please. A desire to reach out to underrepresented groups and using strategies that don't always get you. Just don't invite people to a meeting at school and expect that the diversity of our community will necessarily be there without different strategies being utilized. The concept of career exploration, job placement opportunities, the notion of all pathways after high school. Yes, college is absolutely important and many of our students choose it, but some may not want to choose that. And how are we providing those as well? This was an interesting comment that's come up in a number of circles, that the quantity of work that students engage in should not be confused with the quality. Doing assignments is not necessarily better than 4 if the 4 assignments go to a depth, a complexity that is really significant for our students' learning. So I'm being somewhat brief in my description, but I'm using that as an example to say we are hearing that the quantity of work that some of our kids are experiencing in our schools may be adding to some of the other issues that we're experiencing around social emotional wellness and so forth. So we will need to look at that. And of course, when hiring for diversity, be sure to represent all. In other words, our entire community. Next slide, please. Comments were made about the challenges of funding and equitable funding. How do we do that? Which is why it is one of our transformational areas. We've got to come together to do that work. It's not just about you making decisions. You need the revenues to make those decisions. And we've got to work together with our community and all of our stakeholders. Emphasizing group work and teams is part of this plan. Ensuring that parents factor more into our work, oversight committees, communication plans, and so forth, and the importance of publicizing measurable goals. Next slide, please. This is the concern trying to address to say we have no intention of minimizing academic excellence. And I just want to put out for your consideration that in our community, there are some that believe that we're moving too slowly in terms of issues of equity and inclusion, and some that believe we're moving too quickly. And I would suggest that that becomes an important element of our work, bringing our community together, explaining the why of this commitment, helping people understand what we mean by the terms that we use, gaining insights in terms of the experiences of our entire San Ramon Valley Unified School District community, and making important site-based decisions with district support regarding next steps. Next slide, please. Our commitments. Next slide. Said again, academic excellence remains our priority, and we've emphasized that, and that change has been made at the beginning of the document. Next slide, please. Equity and inclusion and social emotional well-being are needed for academic excellence to remain, which is why, thankfully, due to your original approvals, these are foundational components in the plan. Next slide, please. All our students, staff, and community are included in our commitment to equity and inclusion, including those with special education needs. And the reason why I'm saying this again is because for whatever reason, some of the community that shared their insights thought we were excluding students with special education needs, and we went all through the document to try to figure out where that may have been the case. We can't find that reference, so I'm simply emphasizing that this is our intention, our commitment, that we're speaking about all of our students, including those with special education needs. Next slide, please. And we know we need to continue to define deep learning because it's not something that's easy to simply talk about. What we have experienced is deep learning as we're defining it does happen in our district as we speak. Holding up those examples, sharing those strategies and insights, and allowing our community to understand what we're talking about usually is done most effectively when we can actually point to that which is happening, as opposed to simply talking about creativity, critical thinking, collaboration, communication, and so forth, which I think we would all agree are important components to the learning, but showing it in action is where we intend to go. Next slide, please. This is why it's important that we are engaging over the next while our school communities so that they can make this strategic direction their own with our support. So yes, we will be asking each school to think about the kids they're serving, to think about the resources that are available to us in social emotional well-being programs, and to be specific at site level regarding what's going to be used, why it's going to be used, and how it's going to be used. One of the key messages of this strategic plan is it's not a cookie cutter approach. Not every school needs to be doing the exact same thing unless that is warranted. Now, some things will be expectations across in terms of how we approach the work, but much of this has to be, who are we serving? Where do we need to focus? What does the learning plan for staff need to be? How do we monitor the improvement, and how do we engage our stakeholders, parents and students included, with our staff in this work? So that's what's so important about the site-based approach to this. Next slide, please. Over the next 6 months, we've already begun studying this. Measurement of progress will be explicitly stated. But this is where I think the biggest shift is. There will be some district measures because some of the work is happening at district level. But the kind of improvement that we are seeking only happens when those transformations happen in classrooms, connected to the learning that needs to happen there. And then we, in essence, scale up what goes on in those classrooms to determine how our district is moving forward. And that's why the next 6 months are so important, so that our school communities and our service departments can think about the improvement needs to be within these parameters to arrive at authentic focus within these directions and to determine next steps as I've described. Next slide, please. As I mentioned earlier, career and technical education emerged not just in this last 2 weeks, but previously as something that we need to pay more attention to. We have amazing opportunities presently. Not everyone understands and knows those opportunities, and we are continuing our work with our colleges, our community college, for example, at DVC. And there are so many opportunities here that our community gave us feedback on through this last 2 weeks. And I want to emphasize that we didn't change the plan because it's here, but I wanted those who put forward this concern to know that it's very much front of mind for us. Next slide, please. The continuous improvement cycle, which is noted on the second page of this document, is probably something that I've shared over and over again is integral. But what's new for us is not just informing our parents about what the plan is, determined by our amazing staff, or informing our students, should they be interested to know what our focus areas might be, but actually creating ways to engage our community prior to those focus areas being determined. And we know that that's going to take some facility support at each of our sites in order to do that work effectively. And that's some of the work that's happening this summer so that we are prepared in July to support our principals to create the space for this type of work to happen with our staff, of course, but with all stakeholders as well. Next slide, please. You heard me say 2 weeks ago, and I share it again, that transformational change requires cultural shifts. We are not changing everything. There are amazing, amazing examples throughout our district of excellence. And we're just going to continue that. Some people say, well, what about? Well, our data says we're already good at that. You can fill in the blanks. We're not planning to forget about that. We're just not focusing the transformation there as we continue to move forward. So the art of moving forward doesn't mean you let go of that which is already effective. And that's part of what we need to do. But the whole notion of cultural shifts is key. Next slide, please. And we've decided to actually list those cultural shifts that were in a slide from June 1st on the second page of this document because they're pretty significant. Broadening the definition of success, strengthening and enhancing shared leadership and responsiveness, prioritizing equity and inclusion, and changing instruction, assessment, and intervention as necessary to support this work. Next slide, please. So as I said, our next steps is facilitated process at sites and in departments between August and January, finalizing district committees and processes. We brought forward to you in the plan that we want to solidify the equity, deep learning and innovation, social emotional well-being, and then within those committees, we would have some of the already existing work groups and task forces that will remain, but at least they have a home. We'll build in a continuous loop, so what goes on in those committees comes here. Our LCAP committee will still do its work at the level it presently does, but at that strategic, I call it 30,000 feet level in relationship to our revenue. And our goal is that there is a connection between each of the levels supporting this work. And because this next phase, I think, is really important, we'll bring a report back to you on the 16th of November and 18th of January that gives some updates regarding how this is unfolding. Not too different from what we've done this year, which is we started in January, end of January, and we've been here bringing reports to you periodically throughout this last 4 or 5 months so that you're always aware of where we are in the process. You can direct next steps. You could provide your own insights and perspectives so that what we're doing with our community actually reflects the direction that you're providing. And I think I'm close to the end. There we go. But what will we continue to work on? This is an important slide because I don't want us to think that the work stops. I shared this slide on June 1st. I felt I needed to share it again. We do want to start the 21-22 school year differently with an eye on bringing our community back together. You'll hear more about that in August. Continue our work on multi-tiered systems of support and grading and structured literacy. Continuing to examine issues of access. Providing facilitated equity learning opportunities for all staff. And we're looking most specifically in the areas of implicit, explicit bias, how it relates to culture in our schools and departments, and how we begin to name and interrupt so we can support all kids in their learning and their well-being. And specifically, while we're doing that learning, we will ensure that our entire community understands our commitments and our processes in our Responding to Discrimination and Hate handbook. And we're going to strengthen our reporting mechanisms so that we are absolutely clear with our community how they can let us know when they need our attention. Those structures exist, but we feel like we need to dust them off a little bit, bring them to the front of web pages and apps and other places such as that, so that no one is confused about how to let us know at school level or at district level that they need our attention related to any issues of discrimination. Next slide, please. I just want to end by thanking you first. You said yes to us beginning a process in January. Most people thought that a process in January made little to no sense, but my ask of you was, if we do this work, the momentum that we then could start the new school year with would be amazing. And already we're feeling that. So thank you for starting a process in January, engaging in workshops in February and March. We had record numbers of engagement, probably because so much of it was virtual and it was actually easier to participate in. And I believe personally, having done this type of work in a few other districts, we've landed, I believe, in a pretty strong place that does effectively capture the voices of our community. We don't have full agreement, and I'm not going to pretend that that exists, but I think we have a better understanding. And the reason I say that is because everyone who calls us saying they don't understand something about the strategic plan, we've decided that the strategy we're going to use is not to email, but to pick up the phone. So we pass the email. I mean, I call, Christine calls, members of the team call. We just pass it around and say, please call this person. And 95% of the time, what we're learning from the conversation is we just needed to understand better what we're saying. And those conversations are helping us strengthen our communication because we're understanding how people are hearing or seeing or making sense of the words. But if they haven't been a part of the conversations, they might not actually understand the direction. So part of what we're committed to from September, August to January is also really strengthening the communication around this work as well. So I am very grateful to our cabinet team. I just want to say that to ask of them to do this work while we were doing pandemic work and reopening schools to hybrid and reopening schools to full-time, all happening within the same time period. I keep telling the team, because we had our cabinet retreat, that we've lifted so heavy that I think we could do anything. And to our staff, who's been so great to work with in this, and to our families and our students, I feel like it's a great, great way to end our board meetings for this year with your consideration of the plan that's in front of you. So I will stop there, President Ordway. I hope that you have seen that we have, even though the numbers were smaller, we tried to capture what those community members who took the time to come back again and offer their suggestions and their insights, though we didn't change the plan because they weren't actually plan-changing ideas. I'm hoping that through this presentation, we've captured their voice in a way that will show that everything that we learned is important and will be part of our work.
Okay, great. Thank you, Dr. Malloy. No, I thank you, everyone, for actually even clarifying, right? For people, we definitely, as you said, we're not watering down anything. Academic rigor is still up there. So we're really keeping, like, as you said, right? We want to keep things that are working and really improve on things that are not working. This is the best time to do it. And I have to thank you and cabinet and staff for, developing this plan of moving, actually kind of actions, right, on our strategic goals and direction. And thank you to all the parents, students, community member, and staff, teachers, and classified members who provided feedback, because it is really this, right? It's not one person or one group's job. It's our whole community. So thank you for that. Any questions or comments from the board?
Yeah, first, I do want to thank and express my appreciation to Dr. Malloy and the entire staff and community for their participation in putting this together. And as you said, Dr. Malloy, particularly in this time when it's, our focus has been taken so much on just making sure that we're keeping our kids and our staff safe and getting them back to school. The one thing, well, two things. First, very quickly, I really do appreciate the added significance to CTE and making sure that, because that's an area that I think that we have been falling short of. This district is well known for the high percentage of kids not only who graduate, but go on to college. We want to make sure that even under the area of equity, we're not missing those students that really are more hands-on related for their futures and making sure we're providing them the proper education. Along those lines, one thing that I would like to see us, and doesn't have to be in the plan right now, but really as an ongoing long-term perspective, a feedback mechanism that talks to how our students have done here, not just current students, but as they've moved on. I know the state has worked a number of times in different ways on collecting data across the levels. But I'm hoping that we could do some things ourselves in terms of how we connect and reconnect with our students over time to determine exactly how well we've done in preparing them and what that means to future generations of students.
Thank you, Trustee Mintz. We'll incorporate what you just suggested into our plans, because I asked the same question and our team shared with me that we do have access to some quantitative data when students leave us, but not most importantly, but also importantly, is qualitative, engaging in other ways of hearing directly from some of our students who have graduated from our schools regarding your question. So that will be built into the measurement.
Thank you very much.
Any other?
I would like to echo Ken's remarks about how I just think the plan keeps getting better. And I really appreciate how the team has gone back and integrated additional feedback after each. First note I wrote while I was reviewing it was just love it. I really appreciate how you were able to work in the most recent feedback, which really was clarifying understanding. But I feel like you were really responsive, and I just wanted to call that out.
Yeah, and I want to,
I want to echo Ken's comment about CTE. I think this district, I think we've been focused a lot on academics, which is important. We all know that. But when I started thinking about running for this seat, one of the things that what stood out to me was that I thought that there needs to be a big improvement on the focus and the resources that we put toward kids who don't necessarily choose that same path as other students. So I'm really looking forward to seeing the work that we're going to be able to do in this area for that part of our demographic that maybe feels like they haven't had the focus as much as other students. And I think one of the silver linings of the whole pandemic, if there is any, is that it's really prompted the community to step forward and really become engaged with us as a school district and as a board and collaborate with us for the best for our students. Because previous to that, I think we've been in a good place for a long time, and we didn't have the kind of participation that maybe we need to really be able to be effective in the governance of the school district. And I think it took an amazing staff and vision of Dr. Malloy and of course the board and all of the participants and stakeholders to put this plan together. And I think it's actually really, as Rachel says, just gotten better and better with every iteration, the more information that we get. So I'm very proud of it, and I hope that we can work hard to make it all happen.
yeah, and I want to piggyback too on what Rachel said. I think that one of the great things that we've all been able to accomplish is to create a plan that's living, breathing, that's responsive, that's engaging and takes that engagement and helps to make it grow just like we want our students to grow, right? It's kind of a metaphor for that. And I'm so grateful that we have been able to find the energy and the time to be able to do this now so that we can start next year in a way that can be much
that can be even better for our students and allow them to, as they reset into what we call getting back to normal, that we can really kind of give our community the power and the empowerment to be able to be even better than we were last year or the year before. So I'm so impressed with all of this work, and I'm really excited to see where it takes us. I also really appreciate seeing the actionable, seeing the specific things that are going to be done. I think that goes a long way for our community to see that it's not just about again, about being performative. It's about being transformative and showing those details of how we are going to be able to get there, and that's so important. So thank you.
Okay, we do have a public comment for this, Helen of the Doherty Valley.
Hello, everyone. I hate to be a party pooper. I just heard a lot of celebratory comments, but some perspective about this quote unquote strategic plan. I have another name for this. This is SRVUSD cultural revolution. That's really what it is. I don't know most of you, I believe, have had children. I don't know how you raised your children, but when I was raising my child, I did not compliment them because, oh yeah, look, you are from Taiwan and you're yellow and you're Asian and look at your eyes and wonderful hair. I don't know what kind of people you are trying to educate and turn out after they have gone through our K through 12. I can imagine these people will be really narcissistic human beings. And although I understand where you're coming from, as an American, I think you're trying to help everyone to understand each other and to respect each other's personal choice and to respect our God-given, rights. I disagree with the way you are implementing and executing your purposes. First of all, for example, the slide that says hiring to represent diversity. What does that mean? If you have a minority teacher who is still going through her teaching credential program, who has never taught before, versus someone who is maybe applying to our district, coming from another district with 5 years under her belt, but she is white. And the minority happens to be my race, yellow. Are you going to hire that yellow race teacher over this white race teacher because she is yellow, even though she's not qualified? What are you guys thinking? And then you guys put up this, a glorious compliment of yourself that, oh yeah, academic excellence is your goal. Really? I'm sorry, I failed to see it. I just want to say, I was very disappointed when you say that, reporting mechanism. Oh my gosh, that just reminds me of Mao Zedong's Red Guards snitching on neighbors and parents and children and teachers and administrators. When does this ever end? Really, I only pray that our children will not become the communist Chinese that are trying to come to our country, because living like this, your strategic plan, is quite sad.
Please wrap up your comments. Thank you.
I'm pleased to move SRVUSD strategic plan.
I'll second.
And to clarify, you're moving that as amended with Dr. Malloy's amendment? Thank you. The motion was made by Board Member Mintz and seconded by Board Member Hurd. Call out vote. Board Member Clark? Aye. Board Member Bratt?
Aye.
Board Member Hurd?
Aye.
Board Member Mintz?
Yes.
Board Member Ordway?
Aye.
The motion passes 5-0.
Now moving on, 10.2, consideration of adoption of the 2021 to 2024 Local Control and Accountability Plan, or the LCAP. Assistant Superintendent Christine Guardo.
Thank you, President Ordway. This evening, we are here to ask the board for consideration of the adoption of the 21-24 Local Control and Accountability Plan. On June 1st, we did hold a public meeting with regard to gathering members of the public's comments. To date, we have received no public comment. So we are this plan forward, and we are asking the board to consider adopting the 21-24 local control and accountability plan.
Any questions or comments from the board?
I have some suggestions that I would like us to entertain, but if we have cards, maybe we do.
Not on this, not on 10.
Not on this? Okay. And I just want to clarify, I had these comments written up last meeting, and just the way the feedback process worked, I thought I would just give them to John Campopiano, and then it turned out that it would be better for me to present them in public, so that's why I'm doing this. So please, everybody, bear with me. They've already been shared with Ed Services folks via email, and some of them are kind of detailed, so I just feel like I should apologize for that up front. So first, looking at the part of the plan that just deals with the future year, the 2021-22. And Christine, I have a copy of these, so you don't have to write like crazy.
I do have them. I'm just making broader notes, but thank you.
So for goal 1, action 14, and in the document that is 48 pages long, so it's page 13 of 48, the description for that action item currently says, continue to work with the Literacy Task Force to explore best practices with elementary reading instructions. And it just seems to me like it's a really missed opportunity to communicate with our community the really incredible work that it's no longer called the Literacy Task Force, it's now the Literacy Leadership Team, is doing. And the 5-year plan that they've approved, and I just feel like some of those key actions related to the next year really belong in the LCAP. And so these are the ones that I'm suggesting we highlight. The first one is that our elementary principals are participating in professional development in the core online elementary reading academy. That seems like something we should be, owning, taking credit for. We'll be piloting, and then at the end of the pilot, selecting structured literacy aligned curricula, and then perhaps also include from the 5-year plan that we'll be evaluating our tier 2 and tier 3 needs for students in grades 3 through 5, as well as secondary, in regard to foundational skills achievement, which also all ties into FastBridge and all the other things we've been talking about. I just feel like it warrants some visibility in the plan. Related to that, when you add that in, I don't know if that changes dollars in certain places, but I noted, where you might also need to say, add something here and add something there. And then changing the Literacy Task Force name to Literacy Leadership Team. The other things are all just edity things about how we refer to various stakeholder engagement groups. For example, we refer to the SRVUSD PTA President's Meeting, and that entity is correctly referred to as the San Ramon Valley Council of PTA's meeting. There's a reference to the group APAPA being engaged in stakeholder engagement, and it's just written as APAPA like it's a name, and it's actually an acronym, so I think we should spell out the acronym, Asian Pacific Islander American Public Affairs. And then the Exceptional Education Committee is a committee of the San Ramon Valley Council of PTA, so I just think that should be put in front. Then related to the other part of the plan, the 2021 update, some suggested edits in Goal 2, page 10 of 65, in the Goals Analysis section, second box, accomplishments of the Grade Reform Committee described, which is great. I think you should also go ahead and identify the key accomplishments of the Literacy Steering Committee or Literacy Leadership Team. For example, X number of educators have completed the core online elementary reading academy because there was a cohort that went through that in the fall. And then that the Literacy Leadership Team evaluated structured literacy aligned phonics programs and selected 2 that will be piloted. So just kind of the front end of what I talked about earlier. And then some other things related to how we refer to various groups. For example, our Community Advisory Committee doesn't actually belong to the PTA. That's how it's referenced in there. It's a SELPA committee, Special Education Local Plan Area for the audience. And just, I kind of suggested how we clean up the way that's referred to. And that's, you guys want me to read that? I mean, it's really just clarifying how it's referred to. And then similar references in other spots. So I've identified each of those. And there's just more of that. There's like 5 or 6 places where the SELPA CAC was kind of represented sort of weird. And then related to analysis of in-person instructional offerings on page 45 of 65, it correctly ties the CAC to the SELPA this time, but it refers to it as multiple committees. So that's just a really simple edit. So that's my minutia. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, some substantive, some minutia.
Great. Any other comments, edits, questions? No? And thank you to, our LCAP committee, overall committee, and our staff and proofreader, Rachel, on looking at the plan. And may I have a motion, please?
I'll move approval as amended if the amendments are agreeable to everybody. I guess I just say as amended and then you guys decide.
I'll second.
The motion was made by Board Member Hurd and seconded by Board Member Bratt. Call out vote. Board Member Clark?
Aye.
Board Member Bratt?
Aye.
Board Member Hurd?
Aye.
Board Member Mintz?
Aye.
Board Member Ordway?
Aye.
The motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to 10.3, consideration of adoption of the 2021-2022 district, including the excess reserves report. Chief Business Officer Greg Medici.
Thank you, President Ordway, board members, and Dr. Malloy. It is my privilege tonight to share with the board, staff, students, and our community the district's 2021-22 adopted budget report. As we begin, I'd like to thank all of the site, Service Center, and Ed Center staff members who collectively contributed thousands of hours of work to verify and finalize the financial data required to complete this adopted budget report. Thank you, team. You are all spectacular. Next slide, please, Logan. The action the board is set to take tonight is very much a starting point for the district's 21-22 fiscal year. At the stroke of midnight on July 1st, the 21-22 adopted budget financial information will be the foundation of all of the actual revenues and expenditures that occur and evolve throughout next school year. Almost immediately, the first evolutions of the 21-22 adopted budget will occur once we learn how Sacramento finalizes its own adopted budget between today and June 30th. Once the governor and legislature reconcile their differences by June 30th, all school districts in California will work to revise their adopted budgets and will bring a 45-day revision update to their budgets to a board meeting in August. The next major contextual milestone important to this adopted budget will be the real data we learn related to actual student enrollment starting in August and continuing into the fall. As an adopted budget, the student enrollment count for next school year is a best estimate, but not a reality. Once enrollment becomes a reality, the actual enrollment data will be integrated into the board's next major Sacramento financial for 21-22. This report, the 21-22 first interim report, will be the first 21-22 comprehensive financial report to fully integrate both Sacramento's adopted budget and our district's actual enrollment information. This foundation in December will then become the building blocks of financial reports through the end of the school year and projections through the 23-24 school year and beyond. Next slide, please, Logan. As a background, all 1,000 school districts in California are required by law to submit their district's estimated actuals and adopt it to their county Office of Education prior to July 1st. The board's fiscal oversight and diligence throughout the year has guided district staff in the creation of the report before the board tonight. The board engages an independent auditor each year to complete a comprehensive audit of the district's financial information. The board's oversight leads the entire audit process. The audit the board approved on May 4th has also informed tonight's 21-22 adopted budget report. Next slide, please, Logan. As shared during the earlier context slide, staff is recommending the board tonight please take action to accept the 21-22 adopted budget report. As evidenced throughout the report and very specifically on the certification form, the district's positive financial status is demonstrated throughout the revenue and expenditure assumptions and projections included in this report. A positive financial status means the board's financial oversight has placed the district in a position to pay for its assumed and projected expenses for the next 3 school years as required by law. Next slide, please, Logan. Slide 5 represents a comprehensive summary of the district's projected general fund revenues and expenses over the next 3 years. This financial data is known as the report's multi-year projection, or MYP. The MYP is a required component of the adopted budget report. The board's annual investment in staff to benefit and serve students is the district's largest expenditure category. On the revenue side, the local control funding formula, or LCFF, is the district's largest revenue category and therefore the primary source of dollars we invest in our students. LCFF revenues are driven by enrollment and attendance. Over the past 4 years, our district has experienced declining enrollment. Declining enrollment is defined as less students enrolling in our district year over year. This decline is expected to continue for many years to come. Because of the district's declining enrollment status, the following statement is likely the most important financial takeaway of this entire report. On the upper right-hand corner of this slide, the projected $282.5 million in 22-23 LCFF revenues and $288.75 million in 23-24 LCFF revenues are arguably the 2 most important numbers on this entire report. Since both of these numbers are driven by how many students will actually be enrolled in the coming year, once we learn how many students we have in August and throughout the fall, staff anticipates bringing the board a financially material update to these 2 LCFF revenue projections in December. This update will come through the district's 21-22 first interim report and will be based on reconciling how many students are actually enrolled next school year against the currently projected enrollment levels, which may not materialize. At the bottom of slide 5, another core function of the MYP is to show the overall difference between revenue and expenditures each year. These differences, dollar amount differences, flow into what is called the district's ending fund balance. Next slide, please, Logan. The components of ending fund balance are the board's savings accounts for future investments. Some components of ending fund balance are required by law, while others have been created by the board for particular purposes that enable the board to continue to provide and invest in our students every year in an uninterrupted way. Next slide, please, Logan. Starting in the 2016-17 school year, the board adopted a series of reserve categories that were intended to be saving for specific purposes. Since 2016-17, the board continuously updates these reserve categories by taking action to approve every required financial report. Starting in the spring of 2019-20, the board added a reserve category named LCFF shortfall, or local control funding formula shortfall. Shortfall is intended to represent that projected going forward, when and if the district has an imbalance between expenses going out compared to revenues coming in, the LCFF shortfall reserve would balance revenues and expenses. Another key reserve category on this page is the bridge funding reserve. Adopted in the spring of 2018-19 by the board, bridge funding was designed to be a funding source that bridges the district's ability to invest in greater levels of certificated staffing. In concept, this bridge staffing would be funded by one-time reserves to a future point where new reserves from Sacramento grow to a point that funds the higher levels of certificated bridge staffing with ongoing Sacramento dollars, or another source of ongoing dollars, as opposed to one-time reserves. On this topic of one-time reserves, the board's recent action to earmark approximately $30 million of one-time federal and state COVID-related dollars for investments in students throughout the 21-22 and 22-23 school years is represented as part of the 23.7 million legally restricted earmark here. The investment of all remaining COVID dollars will be reflected in budget updates throughout the next 2 school years. Next slide, please, Logan. Thank you, Board, for the opportunity to summarize the 21-22 adopted budget report. Staff comes before the Board tonight to certify that the financial information summarized here and posted to the district website in its entirety using Sacramento's required formatting absolutely demonstrates to the Board and community that the 21-22 adopted budget is complete and positive. Once the Board takes action to adopt this report, starting tomorrow, staff will submit all required documentation to the Contra Costa County Office of Education, or CCCOE. After CCCOE completes its review, they will send the district's adopted budget report to Sacramento. I know that we went through a lot of information. Thank you, Board, for this opportunity, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Medici. Any questions or comments?
Just one quick question. In terms of the monies that we're receiving, the one-time funds from state, federal sources, where do we stand relative to the receipt, and is it what we were expecting to see?
It is what we were expecting to see. We have physically received approximately half of the dollars that we were anticipating. And very specifically, I think it's on page 69 in the comprehensive 169-page report. And let me find it exactly. We've received approximately $17 million of the 30 million, approximately.
And is there a time frame that we'd expect to receive the remaining amounts? Or is that out over a period of time? How does that come to us?
We believe that we will receive the remaining amount in next fiscal year completely.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions or comments?
I have just a clarity question. You talk about in the revenues, there's transfers in, and in 21-22 it was about 500,000, and then it's about 5 million projected for 22-23, and then 0 for 23-24. Can you? I'm assuming that's students transferring into our district. Is that correct, or is it something else?
And I apologize. I heard yes, these are transfers. Can you repeat? I'm assuming that's the something transfer. I apologize. I couldn't.
Yeah, and I may not have spoken loud enough. In under the revenue category, you have the LCFF sources, federal revenue, other state revenue, other local revenue, and then transfers in. And I just from a clarity standpoint, it feels like from the 21-22 school year, 22-23 school year, and then 23-24 school year, they're vastly different numbers. So I'm curious what that means and why they're different.
Thank you. And again, my apologies. The $534,000 approximately transferred in the 21-22 school year is a transfer of primarily of facilities use dollars that live in Fund 40 to fund facilities use programs through the general fund. In 22-23, the transfer of $5 million is actually an active transfer of the $5 million of declining enrollment reserve that the district has in Fund 17, so that we continue to meet our obligations across a 3-year timeline. Without that $5 million transfer, the financial information in terms of a 3-year perspective would look different. And then finally, in 23-24, there are no other remaining sources on a big picture level of reserves to transfer into the general fund. So that's demonstrated with this 0 in 23-24.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So I know the governor and the legislators are wrangling right now about what the final budget's going to be. But one of the things they're wrangling about is whether to pay off the deferrals completely 100%. And it seems like the legislators are wanting to do that, and the governor is hesitant because he wants the money to go somewhere else. If they decide to pay us the full amount, the 100%, how much of that, I know they've paid some already, or they're proposing. If they paid all of it, where would that money go? Would it go into our where would it go into our budget and how much would that be?
Thank you, Trustee Clark, for that very good question. Deferrals are completely related to cash and not the gross numbers projected here. So as an exact example, deferrals are primarily related to LCFF funding from Sacramento. Order of magnitude, we receive approximately 2/3 of our dollars that are LCFF dollars from local property taxes. So there is no deferral of local property taxes. The final third that we receive from Sacramento, the approximately 2.3 billion that Sacramento, the legislature and the governor are debating to defer or not to defer is less than 10% of the LCFF allocation for school districts in 21-22. It's actually far less. So of the $100 million that we approximately receive from Sacramento to fully fund our LCFF, approximately 10% of that 10 million would be subject to deferrals. And whether the school district receives 10 million in July of 2022 or June of 2022, which is the primary deferral debate, will be immaterial for purposes of the district's cash flow. But all 100% of the LCFF dollars, deferral or not, are represented in this report.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? I do have a public comment card for this. Helena Doyley Valley on 10.3.
Hi, Mr. Medici. I have 5 questions for you. Number 1 is last time when there was actually an auditor, she was called on the cell phone. I find that kind of reporting to the trustee board very disrespectful to the community. Going forward, I would like to request that you physically be here, as well as the accountant that did the audit to physically be here. We don't even know if you were talking to my sister on the phone, that there was no way of authenticating that person is the person who audited the report. So please, let's make sure that we have everything that is, there's no room for suspicion. Thank you. And number 2, I would like to understand what is it that the governor and the lawmakers are fighting about. And when they do settle, how does that impact our budget? Like, are they going to adjust it in Sacramento? Or is it going to spit back to you and then you have to adjust it? And then how does that affect the principals at the lower level for hiring purposes? And number 3, the agenda item says that your report should include excess reserve. I didn't see that nor hear that. And I don't know where our excess reserve currently is. Is it sitting in some sort of bank account or in some sort of investment fund? Number 4, I would like to ask you to please ask our state legislature and the governor to pay the teachers STIRS. It is unfair for our school district to make sure we watch our reserve so we can keep an eye on the teachers' retirement. And yet, it always gets, bunked whenever there is an issue that comes up. That's not fair to the teacher. And number 5, what is your projected decline in enrollment? I know you keep saying that. To me, that's an adjective. I need you to please substantiate it with numbers, and then I need you to please share that with principals, and the teachers deserve to know so that they can prepare for their financial future as well. Thank you.
Mr. Medici, I believe you've already addressed how many your assumptions, right? Your predictions of how many students that we're going to be seeing in decline. And it was 275, was it?
Correct. The board adopted
Per year.
Yes, to return to the minus 275 declining trend. Correct.
Right. Okay, thank you. And then sorry.
I'm happy to, President Ordway, to address the questions with your permission.
Yeah, go ahead.
We fully anticipate going forward that our auditors will be able to participate in person. And
Right.
so thank you for that feedback.
Yeah, I think it was our auditor, the auditing company, who had their policy of not, I think, going in person.
Because of the
Because of
pandemic,
the-
it was
Yes,
a temporary situation.
Yes.
Correct. And I can certify that that was our auditor, and obviously the physical document of the audit was completed by our audit company. The governor versus legislature's reconciliation process is taking place right now. The sum of the potential reconciliations, including the trustee Clark's reference earlier to deferrals, and there are other possibilities, including one-time dollars to help fund unemployment insurance, the increased unemployment insurance costs, as well as pension costs, which I believe were actually two of the items. In terms of excess reserves, all reserves were discussed in the presentation tonight, and the full detail of Sacramento's required format is on our board. I'm sorry, is on our school district's website, and the document is right here. And finally, declining enrollment. Yes, President Ordway, as you mentioned, the board acted earlier this year to adopt the declining enrollment standard, and there is, as part of the summary of Sacramento's documentation, there's actually a chart related to specific numbers of the enrollment assumption for next year and the following 2 school years.
Great, thank you. So Helen, anyone who is interested in seeing the whole plan, it is downloadable or viewable from the district website under the business office site. Thank you. Okay, with that, and like to get a motion, please, from members.
So moved.
Second.
The motion was made by Board Member Bratt and seconded by Board Member Clark. Call up vote. Board Member Clark?
Aye.
Board Member Bratt?
Aye.
Board Member Hurd?
Aye.
Board Member Mintz?
Aye.
Board Member Ordway?
Aye.
The motion passes 5-0.
Great. Okay. Moving on, 10.4, consideration of adoption of resolution number 81/20-21, proclaiming the month of June as lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer LGBTQ+ Pride Month, and to fly the Pride flag. I think Trustee Bratt is going to take us through this.
Yeah, I believe we had this in the packet, so I believe everyone had a opportunity to look over the resolution. So I just want to go through a couple of slides just to kind of give some why and what around the resolution. So if you go to the next slide, please. So as we know, our students succeed when we, as an educational community, when we celebrate diversity, when we commit to equity, embrace inclusion, and when we empower belonging. I believe that this resolution highlights our commitment to supporting our LGBTQ+ youth, our students, our staff, and our families. And as we move forward with our strategic plan, embracing equity, deep learning, and social emotional wellness is a key thing in our strategic plan, and I believe that this is an opportunity for us to show that. Next slide, please. This resolution asks that we proudly fly the Progress Pride flag at our district office for the rest of June 2021, and then at all of our district sites during the month of June starting in 2022. This is a picture, an image of the Progress Pride flag. It adds 5 arrow-shaped lines to the 6-colored rainbow flag that we're all familiar with, placing a greater emphasis on inclusion and progress. This flag includes black and brown lines to represent LGBTQ+ people of color, whose activism inspired the very first Pride, along with pink, light blue, and white, which represents transgender identities. I also want to take a moment to thank Cindy Fisher, Denise Jennison, and Dr. Malloy as well as PFLAG and the SRVUSD triad staff for helping to put this resolution together. And I want to also say thank you to a big special thank you to our LGBTQ plus students, staff, families, and allies, and let them know that we see you, and that's what this is about. Your strength, your voice, and your insight have inspired us to bring this to the board for approval. And I just want to say that I thank you for so much for just being you and being able to feel empowered to be authentic. So I'm really excited to bring this forward. And then next slide, please. Just as we discuss this resolution, I just want to read this quote from Harvey Milk that I find to be very insightful. All young people, regardless of their sexual orientation or identity, deserve a safe and supportive environment in which to achieve their full potential. And I think as we looked at the strategic plan, as Dr. Malloy discussed it today, I think this really drives home how we can take action for some of our specific marginalized communities in our school district to be able to empower them and support them. So I don't know if anyone has any questions or any comments that we can discuss.
No, we do have 2 comment cards.
Oh,
Yeah, we can do this. Okay, Helen of the Dolly Valley submitted hers for 10.4. Well, I'd take it in the order they appear on me.
I just don't want people to think that you're favoring me. Okay, so I agree with everything there. All young people, regardless of their sexual orientation or identity, deserve a safe and supportive environment in which to achieve their potential. Amen to that. However, your proposal here to have a whole month that celebrate only the LGBTQ people and to fly their flag absolutely attack what you just said there. Because in our school, there isn't just people who practice LGBTQ lifestyle or that they identify with LGBTQ identities. There are people who are Christians. There are people who, they are not participants of these kind of ideology, for lack of a better term. So then where is the equity for those people when you fly a whole month of the flag in the face of their children and also in the teachers? Do you expect them to feel ashamed? Do you expect them to feel abnormal? Or are you trying to accuse them of the ones who are actually oppressing these individuals? Further, you said inclusion is important. How are you including those people who come from family of a man and a woman who have natural births to their children without borrowing other people's sperms or eggs, or have their children be adopted from a foreign country? How are you including those families? And where is the belonging for those people? Should I come home and tell my children every day that you're okay, you're normal, even though you have a father, you have a mother, and I gave birth to you, and you're normal? I teach my children to respect everyone. However, I have experienced disrespect from people who identify with this group before. During my credential schooling years, I have had professor who just allowed people to barge in when it wasn't on the syllabus and trying to indoctrinate their beliefs. And I was paying for my education. I actually gave up a career because I could not put up with people who just want to talk about how their private life is like and who belongs to this group of people. How are you going to include me if I was going to the school here in this district? How are you appreciating my diversity? I would
Please
be
wrap up your
okay with
comments.
people dressing in, rainbow color clothing for a day,
Thank you,
but
Helen.
for a
That's 3
whole
minutes.
month,
flying a flag,
Thank you, Helen. That's 3
that is
minutes.
discrimination against other people. I would appreciate it if she doesn't
Thank you,
approach me
Helen.
like
That's
this.
3 minutes.
Then we have Marilyn Lucy.
Good evening, trustees, superintendent, and staff. Thank you for this opportunity to address you. Before I comment on 10.4, I just want to do this. Thank you for that strategic plan. It shows a great understanding that equity, inclusion, acceptance, and belonging is not pie. The more we give it to other people, we don't run out of it, right? It's just all inclusive. So thank you very much. My name is Marilyn Lucy, and I am here as a board member of PFLAG Danville San Ramon Valley. PFLAG is a national support, education, advocacy organization for parents, caregivers, family, and friends, the LGBTQ plus community. I'm here today on behalf of hundreds of families that we have and continue to support in our community to ask that you raise the Progress Pride flag during the month of June, which is internationally known as Pride Month. Why is this gesture so critical? The Progress Pride flag is an extremely significant symbol of welcoming and acceptance, and I heard it all throughout that strategic plan, for all LGBTQ plus individuals as well as people of color. As instances of hate are on the rise, both nationally and within our community, it becomes that much more important for our school district to take a clearly visible stand that shows it values diversity and inclusion. It's time to walk your talk. Will we be a district that welcomes, values, and supports all of its students, or just some? It can be hard at times to take a stand that some may view as political. However, is it political to state that all of our students are human and of value? That all our students should feel safe attending our schools? We at PFLAG hear so often about the transphobia, homophobia, xenophobia, and racism that our children and families deal with on a daily basis in their schools and their neighborhoods, including ours. Children who say they don't feel safe being their true selves until they graduate from our schools and move away. Isn't that sad? Children who are suffering from extreme depression and anxiety and engage in self-harm and even attempted suicide at rates that are beyond comprehension, both because of the erasure, discrimination, and harassment that they experience on a daily basis within our schools. And because their district and community does not see
Please
them.
wrap up your comments.
Is that 3 minutes?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Please approve the resolution. Thank you.
Yes, Ken.
Yeah, I'm going to be supporting the resolution and the flying of the flag, though I have 2 points that I want to make on this item. First, it's been the board's practice the last 2 or 3 years now to bring all of our resolutions of this type together at the beginning of our school year. And I would like to see us include this resolution in the future as we've done with others. I think it's really helped to clarify the types of things that we as a board feel important to have resolutions, not just like we're going resolution. So I believe that it should be supported as we've done with the Day of Silence earlier in the year. The other point isn't specifically about this flag. However, by displaying a commemorative flag on school district property, I want to make sure that we're positioned ourselves accordingly, as it will probably raise issues with others about what flags we do and do not display on school district property. What I would like to see is that the school district bring back to us a policy that has to do with flying of commemorative flags. I probably asked to start with the policy that the city of San Ramon just recently adopted. And speaking to commemorative flags, the types of things that are included there is that there would only be one commemorative flag flown at any given time, no longer than 31 consecutive days, so a month. And again, this is what's in the city's policy, just to give you an idea, that the flags are not intended to serve as a form for free expression by the public, that it is only the school district that would place and fly a flag on school district flagpoles. Also, that commemorative flags do not represent political organizations, for-profit organizations, religious organizations, or other nations as part of it. That's the type of thing that I would like to see us have a fuller policy on before this question then, well, when it gets into freedom of speech type of issues in terms of the action taken. I come.
Any other?
I would like to also say that I am supportive of this resolution. And I think to put into context what it means when we display this flag for a month, or you said in your presentation, and I just want to reiterate it, see you. We hear every year when we go to the BSA Alliance session with the kids, and when they have their meeting just with the board, they need to be seen. Everyone is welcome. We have a sign on all of our campuses that say that. So that kind of goes without saying, but it does need to be said. And this particular group of students has told us over and over again, we need to be seen. Okay, we need to make sure they know they are seen. And I'm very supportive of the direction Ken was going, because I think we have other groups of students that need to be seen. And I think working it into a board policy on how that works is a really important next step.
Yeah, I just want to make a point about being seen, and you know, as someone who has a family member who's part of the LGBTQ+ community, last year when the city of San Ramon first flew the pride flag, when I first saw it, you know, the flag it's celebratory. It's a significant sign, you know, not for the LGBTQ+ community. It's a sign of strength, empowerment, beauty. You know, each color represents something. And driving down Bollinger Canyon and seeing that flag, I literally had tears in my eyes. And I remember going home and hugging my son and just being so proud of our community, of him, of the world we live in today. That flag can be flown so proudly in our city. And so it really does mean a lot for the entire community, but specifically for our LGBTQ+ community. So
I'm also supportive of this resolution, but I echo what Ken said about coming up with some sort of policy as a district for this, because going forward, there may be more questions about who, why, you know, why them, not us, that kind of thing. And if we can have some kind of policy, then it's going to make it more clear to people. But I think this is such an important part and a part of our community that hasn't been seen or heard. And I think it's important that we honor that and move forward with this.
Thank you. And I agree with everyone that what you've already said. I think in order to show that we are inclusive, and we say we are, and we're now backing it up with maybe, you know, this resolution for the Pride Month, as well as flying out the flag. And to Ken's point, it's just more in the execution, right? And then perhaps policy would help us with the logistics of like, you know, what type of flags, because we will be getting probably some either requests or questions or as going forward. But I very much also support this, as I work with directly with some students who I find they are vulnerable. And I find sometimes that when I read their essays, right, that's how they express themselves, and sometimes they share certain things with maybe and not able to with maybe even the parents. And I find that that they are a very vulnerable group that I think we should let them know that we support them and that they are seen in our school district. So I also very much favor this. And can I have a motion?
President Ordway, may I just ask for one?
Oh, sure, of course.
And I would want Trustee Bratt to be okay with this, but I think that if there is agreement on the additional piece that Trustee Mintz shared, can you just incorporate that into the motion so that we have direction to do some work and bring it back to you? We are, I don't want to make assumptions, but we are assuming that by your passing this resolution, it would be added to our yearly resolution process that comes back to you at the beginning of the school year. So I think that goes without saying. But though we do have information that our flagpole is government property, if you will, and it is directly connected to what you decide, the notion of adding policy language around that is absolutely fine for us to do. So if Trustee Bratt is okay, could you pass the resolution with that intention explicitly stated so that I will be sure we get that work moving?
Yeah, definitely. So
Yeah, I'd like to make the motion to approve the resolution for LGBTQ plus Pride Month, as well as flying the Progress Pride flag, with the addition of looking into policy on flying different various flags on school property.
And I'd like to second.
The motion was made by Board Member Bratt and seconded by Board Member Mintz. Call out vote. Board Member Clark.
Aye.
Board Member Bratt.
Aye.
Board Member Hurd.
Aye.
Board Member Mintz.
Aye.
Board Member Ordway.
aye.
The motion passes 5-0.
Okay, moving on. 10.5, consideration of approval of the College and Career Access Pathways Partnership Agreement, the CAP. And I think that we usually each year kind of renew our approval of this work. Basically, it's working with our the four C's, the Contra Costa County Community College District, and specifically with Diablo Valley College, right? So is there any question? Are there any questions from the board or comments for?
I have a question. How are the courses chosen for this, for the Connect program?
And we have, we have Mr. Chris George to help us with answering these questions.
Thank you. My understanding is they are created in collaboration with our staff and Ed Services and Diablo Valley staff. These 4 courses that we are adding with this agreement were specifically chosen to expand access for our students while not being part of an advancement program, but simply to be a part of an enrichment program.
So how many of those courses that we saw that are being offered do you think benefit? What student demographic are they meant to benefit? How many of those benefit CTE type kids who maybe are not going to a traditional college and so are not interested necessarily in college readiness? And how much are more geared towards advancing their academics?
So the College Connect program is kind of in line with more of the advancing the academics, getting those academic transfer credits. These are these 4 courses that I believe you're referring to. These are chosen for a broad-based appeal to any student, kind of just so, you know, we're reading what they are: administration of justice, cultural anthropology, creative writing, nutrition, and health. So they're meant to appeal to many students. They are not part of a CTE pathway. They're not part of the vocational ed pathway, but they're meant as just expanding the opportunity for students who are interested in the enrichment. They're not the graduation or the A through G requirements, but they are eligible for the UC transfer credit requirements. They're not targeted towards any demographic, but we believe that their appeal, adding a college level creative writing class, for instance, has a broad-based appeal to students who may not be seeing what they, an interest like becoming creative writing to the extent that they want to in our courses, but they have this extra opportunity.
So are all the courses reviewed every year to see which ones, what's the measure? More kids are going to this particular class than this one. Do we ever change? I know you're adding 4, but do we ever make changes in the courses that we connect with?
Yes, we're in, Dave Kravitz, who's one of the directors of instruction, and Jessica Colson, who's our college and career coordinator, have been in contact with Diablo Valley College throughout the year. It's a pretty constant monitoring process as part of this to always be looking at enrollment, to always be looking at which classes are attracting students and we're, as part of our CTE needs assessment and our comprehensive local needs planning, we're always which classes are going to continue drawing the interest based on the Naviance data and things like that. So we're always trying to pump up the interest and really respond to the needs of kids, what kids are taking, but it is a pretty constant monitoring and adjusting, yes.
Do we get feedback from students about these classes? Enrollment information.
I think it largely comes through counselors. I would have to find out specifically what the feedback mechanisms have been from the kids who are taking the classes.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Chris, other than the courses themselves, are there any significant changes to the agreement itself for this year as opposed to previous?
No, yes, no, there are not. This is like as was stated, excuse me. We do review this agreement every year. We re-up it every year. Outside of the addition of the courses, there's no major changes.
Okay, good. Yeah, because as I'm reading through page and page, and I'm trying to see if there's anything that I recognize as being different. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, and thanks for adding. Actually, I think I did add those 4 courses because I do have students who go through the College Connect, and that they found the others valuable. But the more options, the better. Okay, I do have
Can I ask a quick question? Sorry. I just wanted to find out. I know in the report there was talk about this being specifically, or one of the key groups were underachieving and underrepresented students. So I'm curious what we're doing to make sure that they're aware of it and are able to easily take advantage of the program.
Right, and that's actually one of the major things that we look at as part of the comprehensive local needs planning that we do with the high quality CTE program. Is one of those things is looking at how are we getting the word out with recruitment. This year was really tough in that aspect, just as everything was, right? But we are really looking at how we make sure that we're getting the word out. It mostly goes through counselors and it mostly goes through the regular course planning process. But we have other things, career days and job fairs and things like that, and putting it out through CTE teachers. But as we go through the process next year, we're going to go through a more comprehensive process than we've previously done when it comes to looking at the elements of a high quality CTE program. That is one of the major things that we're looking at, is how specifically we're recruiting it. It is an area that we think we can really make some headway in.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the board? Okay, Helen, come on up for a 10.5.
Thank you, Mr. George, for this very important program. I really appreciate your efforts. I am, however, extremely irked and disgusted by the trustees' questions. All you care about is your particular activist groups that you're trying to shelter and put under your tutelage. For someone like me, I feel like I should just go hang myself. This person just approached me. You guys never told her to please be seated and be called. If I did that, you would shut my mic down. This is how equity means to you. Whatever that is yours, whatever that benefits your group, that's equity. I feel so disgusted my taxpayers, my tax money is going to fund this kind of education. You are a hypocrite. If you are truly honest about equity for all, please ask questions for everyone. Guess what? My kids are extremely talented and they have good grades, but guess what? They may not go to a stupid Ivy League college going forward because all they learn will just be racism and how to have sex. I might have my children go to this kind of program. So please do not ask questions for your own benefit. Thank you.
One additional question, Chris. Do you happen to know about how many students participated in College Connect as opposed to just taking courses at DVC this past year? It's okay. Has College Connect continued to increase in size, or are we, any sense?
As I don't know what the last year has done. I don't know what this year specifically has done, but it's been a pretty continual pace over time.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, if no more comments or questions, can I have a motion to approve?
So
for this-
moved.
Second.
The motion was made by Board Member Clark and seconded by Board Member Hurd. Call out vote. Board Member Clark?
Aye.
Board Member Bratt?
Aye.
Board Member Hurd?
Aye.
Board Member Mintz?
Aye.
Board Member Ordway?
Aye.
The motion passes 5-0.
10.6, consideration of approval of addenda to employment agreements for superintendent and certain contracted management employees applying a salary adjustment and a extension of term. Okay, I'm going to read this. This item requests that the Board of Education take action to approve addenda to the employment agreements of the Assistant Superintendents of Business and Operations, Educational Services, and Human Resources to extend the term of those agreements through June 30, 2023. Additionally, because he has satisfied the relevant terms of his contract, the addendum for the Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources also applies a 5% longevity increment or increase to his base salary beginning July 1st, 2021. Finally, this item also requests approval of an addendum to the superintendent's employment agreement extending his contract through June 30th, 2024. All other items and conditions of the employment agreements for these contracted staff members remain unchanged.
Move approval.
Second.
The motion was made by Board Member Mintz, seconded by Board Member Hurd. Call out vote. Board Member Clark?
Aye.
Board Member Bratt?
Aye.
Board Member Hurd?
Aye.
Board Member Mintz?
Aye.
Board Member Ordway?
Aye.
The motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. 10.7, consideration of approval of a new administrative regulation 4119.12, 4219.12, 4319.12, personnel, and AR 5145.71, students, Title IX, sexual harassment complaint procedures. So I think the review of this, right, of this resolution was done at the last meeting. So I think that, do we have any questions or comments from the board? No?
I'd like to move approval.
We do have a card for
Oh,
the
okay. Wait for
item.
the card.
Yes. So Helen, for 10.7.
In this culture that we are in, sexual harassment can happen to anyone, including straight students in our school district. I know a student who was asked by a group of people to be their chat group's moderator. It was his job to call out speech that was out of order. Then all of a sudden, someone was invited to join the group. He started to send the group homosexual invitation and pictures of genitals. This straight student called it out. He was punished. Do you think that's fair? Why is it that sexual harassment these days, in your opinion, only can happen to people who have LGBTQX? The way you guys just handled how I was treated by this woman, I don't even think she belongs in our district. Is she even a parent? Or is she an activist? The way she treats me, if we were in school, who is at fault? Of course, me, because I'm straight. So she has more privilege to do things that's out of order. She approached me before I went back to my seat. God knows if she had a knife, she could have knifed me. I don't appreciate that. You guys never reprimanded her. Where's the respect for me? Just because I'm a straight, I'm not a full person to you? Disgusting.
Can I have a motion?
I'll move approval of the new policy.
Second.
The motion was made by Board Member Hurd and seconded by Board Member Mintz. Call out vote. Board Member Clark? Aye. Board Member Bratt?
Aye.
Board Member Hurd?
Aye.
Board Member Mintz?
Aye.
Board Member Ordway?
Aye.
The motion passes 5-0.
Great. Okay, now we have a 10.8 item that was pulled from consent. It's consideration of annual approval of membership of committee on assignments or the teacher credentialing. I think, Helen, did you have any questions on that because you pulled a item?
Yes, I would like an elaboration on what teacher credentialing means in this case. I would like to know if you guys are trying to hire people with less credential. Mind you, when the diplomat from Communist China came to discuss with Mr. Blinken, he accused us for not qualified to address that country from a perspective, from a position of strength. So I'm wondering, how are you diluting the strength of our education? Thank you.
Yes. Assistant Superintendent Ostrensky can help us with that.
So this, the Committee on Assignments is a process that is implemented by most school districts, condoned by the California Education Code, and it specifically applies to assessing and permitting teachers to teach an elective course. And it's usually in cases where there is no specific credential issued by the Commission on Teacher Credentialing to teach the course. So for example, leadership, basically any type of a credential is applicable. So what happens is that the representative from the Teachers Association and district management evaluate the recommendation for a specific teacher to teach that course, and they look at what experience and or training the teacher has received that will equip him or her to teach that course. Once a decision is made for that individual to teach it based upon those special skills, talents, expertise, it's signed off by the two parties who are members of that committee, and that remains in place for a year. The Education Code also requires, and actually our County Office of Education, our oversight agency, requires that this be done prior to the rollout of the new school year. So all of those are considered, early in August, prior basically to the first day of school. So again, elective courses, and generally where there is no specific credential issued by the CTC.
Great, thank you.
May I respond to that? Now I understand what it means.
I think that he answered your question. So
Because I asked
yeah,
the
we don't
question
want
because
to we don't want to
didn't
have
know.
a conversation. Kind of.
It's not a conversation. So
want
now
to-
I know what to say to this particular issue. I just want to quickly say that you're taking away what is a principal's job to specific pet staff called committee, I disapprove this, this proposal. Thank you.
Can I have a motion, please?
Move approval.
I'll second.
The motion was made by Board Member Clark and seconded by Board Member Bratt. Call out vote. Board Member Clark?
Aye.
Board Member Bratt?
Aye.
Board Member Hurd?
Aye.
Board Member Mintz?
Aye.
Board Member Ordway?
Aye.
The motion passes 5-0.
You. Okay, now we'll move on to 12.0 administrative matters. Board members report. So let's start with Shelley. Any report?
Yeah, this has been quite a ride since December. And it's been my pleasure and the biggest honor to present diplomas and promotion certificates to the graduating and promoting classes of this school district. It's been a dream of mine for many years, and it was the most incredible experience, and it reminds me why we all do this work. Because seeing those shining faces and those brilliant, wonderful kids who work so hard to achieve those promotions and those graduations, and to be able to share that and be up close with them and actually give out some diplomas to some kids who I know and I've known for years that I'm very close to was one of the greatest honors of my life. And I'm so grateful to everybody in the district, especially our teachers, our classified, certificated, all of our support staff, our incredible administrators. You are the glue that held us together through all of this. We may have sat in these chairs and made a lot of hard decisions, many of which were not popular. But I hope that you know that for me, I appreciate everything that you have done to carry us through this really, really tough time. And I know it was hard on everybody, students as well as all the staff and teachers. So that's my sign off for the year. I look forward to doing the important work as we move forward, and I'm excited about our strategic plans. And I hope we can all come together to do that important work.
Thanks, Shelley. Laura?
Yeah, I also want to say congratulations to all of our promoting and graduating students, as well as all of our students that completed this last year. It's been like Trustee Clark said, it's been quite the ride, and I'm just proud of everyone. I also want to say a huge thank you to everybody, to our students for working so hard and really stepping up and doing what needed to be done so that they could learn. Thank you to the teachers, to the staff, to our administrators, and to our parents for sitting next to those kids, right, and helping them to learn how to learn in a different way. So it's been quite a year, and I think we all deserve a pat on the back for really helping every student get through it as best we could. And then, my God, I also want to mention summer school. So I have a few students that come to this campus for summer school, and I've had a little bit of insight into the goings on, and I'm extremely impressed. There's a lot of students. I want to say 800 plus, and the teachers, the logistics, in terms of making sure that every student has a device, the opportunity for free lunch for all the students. It's very impressive, and I'm very grateful that our district has been able to build out the summer school in a way this year to really allow for students to be on campus and be together and have the support that they need. So and then we had a traffic meeting this afternoon right before this meeting. So that was our last, but we'll probably have a special meeting before the beginning of next year.
Thanks, Laura. Rachel?
Well, I don't think you can come to this final June meeting and not mention graduations and promotions, but it's awesome that you guys had the experience that you had in your first year. And I remember what it was like the first year. And have to say this year was special for me too. Just the sense of relief. I mean, you could feel it on the part of the kids, you could feel it on the part of the staff. It just felt like a celebration, and it was really, really awesome. And I just want to thank everybody involved in planning those events. I know the way there were 2 seatings at the high schools and 1 to 3 seatings at some of the middle schools, it was a lot more work. But I think sometimes necessity is the forget the expression, but it causes invention, right? And so some of the ceremonies were sort of reinvented in nice ways. It was nice to see that in action. I had the opportunity to chaperone at the Cal High grad night, which reminds me that I think we want to thank all of our parents who put in so much time to make grad nights happen amidst all of the ambiguity that required and the force had to plan something. And just, it was so incredible to watch these kids be kids. And, even within the rules they had to follow, they were so polite and so respectful, and you could tell they were really happy to be there as well. I noticed on our personnel reports that we had a few more staff retiring. There always seem to be some that sneak in after the reception, and so I'd just like to acknowledge them, thank them for their years of service, and I'm sorry we didn't get to say goodbye to you in a more public way, but I'm sure that was by your own choice because that's how you wanted to do it, and we respect that, but I just want you to know how valuable you are. And I think that was the last thing.
And I would just ditto everything's been said relative to the graduations. I congratulate all of those at 8th grade promotions and high school graduation. I had the opportunity to attend 3 middle school promotional exercises and high school promotion, one of them at Monte Vista. And just as everyone said, I think it went over really, really well. I think that, as it turned out, everyone seemed real happy with the way it worked. Even up the high schools into 2 different ceremonies meant a whole lot of traffic for folks and people, able to find places to fit. As far as the last point that Rachel just made relative to retirements, I will go ahead and call out one individual that was on that list. Joelle Marchese just retired. She's a science teacher at Poly. She was also, I can't recall what year it was, but she was our teacher of the year. And it was funny because when she was, it ended up that 3 of the board members at the time all had students who had been in Joelle's class. Both of my children had her as well. And just an outstanding teacher and an outstanding leader in our school community. And I know that speaks to many, many of our staff members, but here's one that just meant a whole lot to our board, and appreciate her time and attention, just as we appreciate the work of all of our staff, those retired and those who are moving on to other people.
Thanks, Ken. Second, third, fourth, 5th. Actually, I'm the 5th one. So 5th, everyone, what you said with regards to thanking everyone for this tough year. It was great. Actually, we end last board meeting of the school year with a celebration of Mr. Dan, and of course all the celebrations. And actually, again, looking at the silver lining of this pandemic, that we were able to, I think all 5 of us, attend multiple middle school promotions and high school graduations, where some, in the years past, we might not have been able to do that because there were more opportunities this year. Again, if I try and thank everyone that's, been through this with, we would be here for another hour. So I'll just say that I am very proud to be part of the San Ramon Valley Unified School District. And I can't imagine better group, everyone, community, parents, students, and of course, all all staff and and teachers that you guys are great to go through a pandemic with. That's all I have. So I'm going to throw it over to Superintendent Malloy.
Thank you, President Ordway. And just briefly, I want to communicate with you, our board members, that obviously today was a very significant day in California in relationship to the pandemic. And we are awaiting clarity from Cal OSHA, which governs staff in terms of health and safety, around how requirements are going to be shared. We're expecting information shortly. I will keep you and our community informed of all of that. We also know that there's still discussions around what August is going to look like. And we've been promised that by mid-July, we are going to receive new guidelines for the 21-22 school year. So our communication is simply going to remain the same. We will not exceed the expectations of California Department of Public Health, but we will follow them. And when we know them, we will be explicit about them. The thing that makes this year a little bit different than when I was joining you last July is that from what we're hearing from all sources, all expert sources, is that anything that may come forward in those guidelines won't impact our schedules, won't impact how we do things, won't impact decisions that parents need to make. So we are ready for the new school year after we support our kids in summer school. So I will be in touch with you as that information emerges. And as I said, we'll share with our community. My only comment that's a little bit broader is, you know, when we celebrated Dan tonight, when we listen to students at their graduation or promotion ceremony speak about their experiences, all of the end of the year celebrations that I'm thinking about, for instance, PTA that I was with and other meetings that I've attended, have spoken to a depth of commitment and passion and energy around education, community, and students and service. And I too am saying to everyone, this being my first year with you, what a year, but I wouldn't want to be anywhere else because of everything that we've been talking about. And you know, it's said that change is very, very challenging for most of us. And we had to change sometimes daily, all of us. It speaks to a strength that we have and we are. It was not easy. There were days when I thought, this is going to be pretty challenging to work through, but we did. Together, the community, our students, our staff. So we get to end on a note that I, too, like you, am very grateful for. So all the best to all of us and to our amazing cabinet team, some of whom are here, some of whom are behind me. You know, they've had to put up with me all year in the intensity of this pandemic space. And I say that with a little bit of humor because we were at our cabinet retreat today and last Thursday. We had some extended time for the first time. And my comment was, let's just take a deep breath and realize all that has been accomplished. And it's really amazing. And that's not just words. When you actually think about the volume of important service, I won't call it work, important service that happened this year for our kids, it's amazing. So we end on that positive note, and thank you to our board for all the leadership that you continue to provide.
Right. Thank you. And with that, unless there's anything else, we're adjourned.